Good evening, everyone. Welcome here. Thank you for joining us for another inner hour, but on our new time slot. So this is uh, and all of you obviously got that message, or you wouldn't be here. But we're going to be doing inner hour on Sunday evenings now, and I hope that hope you continue to join us, and that will work well for you. Uh, Let me do one thing here to adjust my video on something. There we go. Okay. So, all right, all set. So as you know, I like to light a candle here at my end before we start. A little moment of focus. You're invited to do that as well if you like, or at least pause for a moment wherever you are and just kind of let go of the day up to now and bring your attention present with us. Mhm. You're showing on top. Oops, I guess you couldn't really see it, but there's the candle I light. So once again, continuing in our good and evil discussion series, this will probably not be the last night. We'll probably do one more, but we'll see how it goes because there's two different topics I want to address still in this particular series, and I doubt we'll get through both of them tonight. The first one is the idea of what's sometimes in the Christian world called redemption. It has a lot of a similar idea in lots of different frameworks. Redemption, being forgiven by God, going home to God, going to heaven, um, uh, teshuvah in the Jewish tradition, turning around and reorienting ourselves to God, coming back into the oneness again instead of the dual consciousness that we always experience. There's lots of different ways of talking about this kind of a process of shifting from the consciousness we're used to and caught up in that has created um, that consciousness itself spawns many of the problems that we have in the world today. Certainly the division and duality, and then can exaggerate that into animosity and prejudices and eventually hatreds and violence and all those terrible things that we deal with. And so how do we come away from that? And in the Jewish tradition, as we've mentioned before, ancient and modern, they had the idea of tikkun nefesh and tikkun olam in very simplistic, broad terms. That kind of means that there's two different works we need to do. One is on ourselves. We need to come to peace with ourselves and heal what's broken in us, make peace with us, if you will, come back into oneness ourselves. And then the other is how we help restore the world. How do we help bring the world back to peace again and back into oneness again? And they're interrelated, but also distinct. And pardon me, great teachers like Moses and Yeshua and many others in other traditions have generally focused on the work begins inside us in a transformation of our own hearts and minds, to be more aligned with the divine, more aligned with God, more aligned with spirit, and that personal transformation will lead us into a greater social transformation and ability to interact with one another in such a way that we slowly do make a change in the world. So the first part I want to talk about before the series ends, which I'm going to start with tonight, is what is that process and how do we do it? And meaning internally, how do we reorient ourselves, reconnect, go home to God, wake up to the oneness? Whatever words we use, how do we do that process? The second part or topic that I'd like to deal with before the series ends is the based on Yeshua, Jesus, based on his teachings, what did he say about all this? What did he say about this good and evil discussion that we're having, the nature of good and evil? What did he say to do with it or do about it or how to engage it or not engage it, as the case may be? Or the idea of tikkun nefesh and olam, which existed back in his day too. How do we uh, how do we work on ourselves and then work on our larger self in the sense of our participation in humanity as a whole? How do we interact with all that? And there are some very specific things we can argue about who he was and what we believe about him, but there's some very specific things we do know that he said that give us some pretty good guidelines on some of these things, in my opinion, that I want to get to before the series ends too. So we might get through all that tonight, but more than likely we'll just touch on the first part. So how do we ourselves kind of return to God and reconnect and reorient and recenter ourselves there and not be so caught up in our personal dramas and our inner brokenness and fragmentation. And and then next week, more than likely, we'll try to do the Yeshua part, and how he recommended, how he taught, and how he lived that addressed some of those issues. So, so like before in the series, and those of you who haven't been in this particular series with me before, thank you and welcome for being here tonight. It's structured so that um, you, at any time you like, you can either do the icons, the Zoom icons, and raise a hand, which I will see next to your name, hopefully, and then call on you, and you can share whatever you like with the group. It can be a question, it can be your own insight, it can be an observation. Um, Certainly, if it's something that you're unclear about that I've said, you're welcome to ask me to clarify that. Uh, there's not a Q&A portion. You can just welcome to do that anytime you like. If you've had your little hand icon up for a while and I haven't seen it, because sometimes I miss it, it's kind of small and I get caught up in looking at other stuff and whatnot and listening to people, then just turn on your camera and mic and say something at some point, to get my attention. You're welcome to do it that way also. So I think all of you know, but in case you don't, the inner hour is for the past couple of years now has been recorded, video recording, and we post it to our one by one YouTube site. So you can always watch it later if you miss one or for some reason want to see another one again. If you don't have that and don't know how to find it, email or text us and we'll let you know. So that's kind of the intro for tonight. And as long as I'm sort of making announcements, I'm gonna make one other quick one because I might forget it later in the evening. And most of you know that locally we do a live event with my friend Michael Patterson. We co-teach a class on the first Saturdays of every month. It takes place at the Unity Church here. And I'm making changes in that starting next one, which is the first Saturday in November. And that particular series now is going to be called Reflections, but basically it's reflections on Bible study. It's going to be a Bible study oriented class. We may bring in some supplemental material too that's outside the Bible. I'm sure we will, but it's primarily Michael and I have kind of discovered from a number of people requesting that we do a Bible study series, and also from our observation when there are discussions and interactions with us in our teaching. There are quite a number of people in our local community that I kind of have assumed have a stronger biblical background and knowledge than they do, and that some of the stories and things we talk about and teach about are all brand new to them or foreign to them. So we want to encourage people to get more familiarity with the Bible. And in particular, we want to try to emphasize how to study it, how to have discussions with one another about it in such a way that it it opens us to a deeper level of understanding than picking up the book and going, I can't make heads or tails of this, which I hear fairly often from people I have over the years from people, not just in this community. And kind of how to approach it in a way that you can study and get more out of it, and perhaps maybe even more importantly, what you do learn from those studies. How can you apply those in your actual everyday life? How can you take what is taught there or what your understanding is being taught there and bring that into actual life so that it's not just a theological idea or a philosophical idea or a nice notion, but it can actually help you in your real life and be transformative. So that's the focus of that series. We're going to start really getting into that format the first Saturday in November. And I've also shortened the time a bit so that hopefully we'll stay a little more focused. It's going to be from 10 to 11:30. And you are more than welcome to join us if you're in the area and can get here. I hope you do. Okay, so I think that's all the announcements. Ani, just in case I missed anything important, or like for the gathering, for example, do you have anything to say about that or openings or anything I've missed that we should say?
The gathering is full with a waiting list, but I think that's it.
And that's on the 25th? Is that the right?
That is on the 25th, yes.
25th is
And
just
that is
Saturday from
full.
12 to 4 at Bill and Jan Baumgartner's house. So, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And the November calendar will be going out tomorrow with all the information that anyone needs about one by one.
Woo. All right. Super. Thank you. So my little part to start on the idea of the return process, which is what I'm going to call it. The word redemption is so Christian associated with, we're all redeemed by the blood of Jesus sacrificing himself on the cross for our sins, which is kind of, in a nutshell, Christian theology. In an attempt not to associate it only with that concept, I'm just going to call it the return process. That is, again, how do we shift from the everyday kind of consciousness we have back into what is a more expansive divine consciousness consisting of a felt experience of the interconnectedness of life and the oneness of life and the creator of life. And how do we do that and reorient ourselves to that as the actual center of how we live and how we think and how we make choices? Um, so the first couple things I'll say about that, and again, you can question at any time, and if not, I'll pause at a moment and I'll ask you to come in at some questions. Um, in the Jewish tradition, which of course predates the Christian tradition, that idea is called teshuva, and it basically means return or to turn back or to turn around. It's a reorientation process of really looking at the goal, of looking at where we want to go. Um, that's continued in the ministry of Yeshua, and he has many different stories and also life examples that illustrate that idea. We need to turn around and reorient, keep our eyes on God, so to speak. If that's an uncomfortable word, put a different one in there, but I'm just going to use it probably anyway. Michael and I also use Hashem a lot, which is Hebrew, means the name. It's a way of referring to this boundlessness of this transcendent, pure being out of which everything came and in which everything exists, that we call by this little name God. Uh, so in the Jewish tradition, there are a great many teachings in the Bible and also outside the Bible and also in rabbinical teaching, the Talmud and other rabbinical writings, and in Kabbalistic writings about what is that process and how do we do it. And again, as an oversimplification, some of the central components of most of those teachings are that we need to spend time in introspective work and learn how to consciously make a connection with that living essence in us, with the divine in us, with the indwelling spirit in us. And the primary avenues for that are prayer and meditation, and then also sacred study, scriptural study. And that the scriptural study can open up our minds to begin to look beyond itself because it does not hold all our solutions and does in fact create some of our problems, but to look beyond the mind so that the mind can begin to look at something higher than itself, that the ego can begin to look for something bigger than itself. And the study can help to reorient us that way and prepare us, kind of cultivate our soil consciousness, if you will, to receive that. The prayer and meditation is more direct in that we can actually get in touch with how that oneness, that we are an extension of or an individuation of that oneness of being that is the creator of all that is. And so prayer and meditation practices, and there are many of them that can help us do that. The other part in the Jewish tradition is that it requires a change of heart also. The Bible is full of passages about the Torah or the instructions or teachings of God, poorly, I think, translated as law sometimes, uh, is written in our hearts. And so to be in touch with that inner core of our own being is essential. And that we right now have a great deal of things in our own hearts that are very troubling. Anger, resentment, bitterness, despair, hopelessness, frustration, all the things that we struggle with. Um, how do we purge those things, if you will, and find that peace of heart that we look for? So there's an inner transformation that is required also in these teachings of Shuva in the Hebraic and Jewish traditions. In the Christian tradition, um, once the Christian church got established, its theology basically is you don't have to do anything except believe in Jesus because now he's done all that. And him being an innocent and his willing sacrifice of his own life in the agony of crucifixion and death is what paid the price, the redemption for our sins and freed us from those so we don't have to do that work. And that all you have to do is accept that he's done it and believe in him. And then you're kind of hunky-dory and everything is great. Early Christianity did not teach that and was not oriented that way, but but did believe that Yeshua was a model for a way of life that would accomplish teshuva. That if you lived and thought and practiced the way he did and the way he had admonished us and advised us to live, that reorienting how we live with his teaching and life as a model would accomplish that. There have been many other great rabbis or rabbis in the Hebrew tradition that were way showers, at least to their students and disciples also, of this is what we're talking about. It's not just theology, it's not just an idea. Here's how you have to live to begin to experience that oneness and reorient yourself. So early Christians looked at Yeshua in that light, that he's the kind of way shower model, leader, master, Lord, Rebbe, that was showing us how to live like that would accomplish this return process. Non-Jewish and Christian traditions, particularly, I'm going to say not so much in some of the European mythologies, although there is some of it there, but a more heavy orientation toward that in some of the East Indian teachings that primarily orient toward meditation and a life of harmlessness or ahimsa, and that uh, there's a meditative process by which we can transcend the world and connect with this transcendent uh, creator called by many names in Hinduism and Buddhism and so on. But how do we do that? And so there's a lot of meditative practices in the East that have to do with particularly what they call sound and light traditions or Raja yoga or Shabda yoga. Those are all yoga meaning union practices that they believe would help us achieve this union, this reuniting process and transcending this dual consciousness and coming back into oneness again. And there are many of those kind of paths and teachings in India.
Stephen, can you spell Raja and the other one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Liz. Raja means kingly. Raj is a king. It's just R in English spelling. It's just Raja, Raja. And Raj was a king. The Because kings were very prevalent back in the time of Hindu writings and biblical writings, we have lots of references in both to kings, which we in this country pretty much don't relate to so much, but that was a very common thing back then, so it was a good reference point. Then the other one, what was the other one you want? Shabda? Was that the other one? Just in case. So
I
that's
wrote down Supta or something. I don't know, something with an S.
Yeah, there's one called Shabda. It's Shabda. Shabda. Shabda is means sound. And so basically it's a type of meditation that focuses on repetition of an inner mantra of some kind given to you by a teacher. Um, and that you repeat these particular words, tones, or phrases as a meditation practice. That's another very common one. And that specifically is oriented toward this reunification. And while we're talking about India, I should probably mention a third one. It's called Bhakti. It's Bhakti. Bhakti is loving devotion. And the 18th and final discourse in the Bhagavad Gita is on in the Bhagavad Gita is on Bhakti, a loving devotion to the divine. And basically it says that whatever other path you follow, if you don't have that, if you don't have loving devotion, it goes nowhere. The core of everything is loving devotion, which is basically what Yeshua said too, and basically what Moses said too. So it's a different practices with a very similar understanding of the process and the same end to that process. But those are some other things in non-biblical, non-Jewish Christian writings that address the same returning process and how they envision we could do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Liz. Good questions. So, so the the last piece for me, and then I'll pause, is so in your everyday life, if we take it out of the spiritual realm and spiritual jargon, and even out of the theological, philosophical realm, in your everyday real life, dealing with your wife, your husband, your children, your neighbors, your employers, dealing with real life and relationships, which is what makes up real life. How we relate to the world, how we relate to animals, to food, to our bodies, to each other. Uh, in real life, you will observe that you develop habits. You develop habitual behaviors in terms of what you do every morning when you get up before you go to work or leave the house. You develop habitual ways of thinking. You develop habitual reactive patterns to things you hear. You hear about somebody you don't like, and as soon as you hear their name, what you're already thinking is, I don't like them, and whatever I hear about them is not going to be good because they're terrible. Or you hear about somebody who really inspires you and you think is wonderful, and as soon as you hear them, you think the opposite. Oh, I can't wait to hear this because they're great, they're wonderful. Um, we have these habitual associations of how we look at things, and then we behave out of those habits, by and large. Now we have conscious choice. So we can break those patterns and choose much better ways of living, but many people don't. But to have a better way of living, we have to make a choice, and that choice has to be followed by an action, not just a choice and then an action. And then we can actually start to change things. So um, if there's somebody that you're typically real short and curt and impatient with in your life, whether that's a pet or a person or a coworker, whoever it is, it's not a pleasant way to be treated. And chances are really good that you don't like being treated that way. So if we go back just to that simple golden rule idea again, then when you catch yourself snapping at somebody or demeaning somebody or making a harsh comment about somebody, even if you're doing it in your head and you've actually tamed your mouth enough not to just spew it out the moment you think it, even if you're doing it in your head, you can begin to catch yourself and go, oh, is that me? Is that who I am? Is that who I want everybody to think I am? Is that how I want to live? Do I want to live bitter and reactive and condemning and critically and in the harsh sense of critical, not in the helpful critique sense? Um, is that how I want to do? Do I want to just carry all these prejudices against groups and people I don't even know? And because other people I know think they're awful, I'll think they're awful, or they think they're great, so I'll think they're great too. Um, Whether that goes with religion or social figures or cultural practices or whatever it might be. If you notice tendencies in yourself that do not reflect who you want to be, then when you notice them, make a different choice and follow that by a different action. And eventually you'll build different ways of perception, which will create different habits, which will create different behaviors. But it takes effort and it typically takes some time. So part of the process of return is we have to choose it. We have to want to stop living in the consciousness we're living in and live in a greater one. Then secondarily, we have to make choices that we believe will support or enable us to start moving into that greater, higher consciousness. And if you don't know what those kind of choices are, then you need to study. Then you need to connect with other people that you think are further along in that than you are, and begin studying with them or talking to them or saying, so how do you do this? And learn from each other. Um, if you do know what those choices are, start making them and then start acting on them. And when you feel all those old patterns arise and all the energy behind them of, I want to get back at this one and I want to say these things to really get to them, then just take a breath a moment. It's like, oh, is that the new pattern I want? Is that really what I want to do? I really want to hurt them? I really want to just get back at them? Or do I want to find a way to live in peace with this and in peace with them and then look for a better way? So that's a big part of the process. And then with God, how we sort of get right with God, if you will, is a very similar thing of we need to begin to discern through study, meditation, and prayer that there's a difference between the spirit of the divine in us, inspiring us, and our egos motivating us, or our emotional reactiveness pushing us towards something. Those are not the same voices. We need to learn the difference and begin to pay attention to that, what the Bible calls that still small voice, this voice of what's holy in us. Yeah, Nechama and Shuli, please go ahead.
Hi, Uncle Stephen. It's
Hey,
me.
hi, Shuli.
Hi. So I'm gonna skip a bit backwards to when you were talking about Teshuvah, return.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But before I do, I'm giving you your finger pointing of saying you, Auntie and Stephen, you, Auntie and Lance can do a sigh of relief because my meeting got out early at
Oh,
5:30, so we made it in time.
well, yikes. I thought you were going to be late. That's awesome.
Exactly. We got lucky. It's been a long day, so I'm a little out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
you and me both here. I'm in the
yep,
same boat.
probably. Um, okay. So, I will remind you, give you, so remember Teshuvah, because we do a lot of that for High Holy Days for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Lamentations, the end of Lamentations.
Yep.
Return us to the days of old. It's the, last line or second to last line.
Mhm.
Yeah, turn us to thee, O Lord, and we shall be turned. Renew our days as of old. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem.
Mm.
Love the chant, love the song. And besides it being in lamentation, and you're not supposed to end on a bad note, so we
Yes,
repeat that again
yes.
when we read Lamentations. And it is also in our prayer book when we put the Torah away at the end
Oh,
of the service.
yeah.
Last line, and that actually line is the part that Dad always grew up repeating twice. So I bring it up, but I just am pointing out that it is in our books and
Both the prayer book and the Torah.
both
Yeah,
our prayer book and Torah Lamentations.
Well,
yeah.
Lamentation is part of Torah.
Oh, okay. I think of because we do Lamentations for Tisha B'Av.
Tish B'Av, right. Yeah,
When we're supposed to be with the destruction of the second temple.
right, right.
And it's supposed to be a mourning process, so it's just I actually rather like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. So, I mean, many of the people here probably don't have any Sidurs in their house. A couple might, but they probably all have Bibles or have access to them. And Lamentations is something you can definitely read. That section she quoted. So, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was looking at it. It actually doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't
Not in
have
this. I'm looking at the Jerusalem Bible,
Oh, I love that translation. Yeah,
and it's actually the second to last verse, not the last verse.
Okay.
right, right.
And it
Second.
actually does end on a bad
I
note.
know, I know, I know it does.
So actually, that's why I say it's the second to last.
Yeah, thank
And
you, Shirley.
you repeat it because you aren't supposed to end on a bad note.
Right, right.
So I just wanted to point that out that it is in here
Thank
and
you.
remind you of that.
All right. Thank you, dear. Yeah, for people who sometimes people ask me what Bible translations I recommend. So just while we're on that for a moment, there are two. One is much harder to get now, which is the Jerusalem Bible, which was originally published in 1966 and then subsequently updated. The 66 version is difficult to find now. It's out of print in many places. There's also one called the New American Standard Bible, NASB, that I think is a really good translation as well. And then there's now another new updated version of that, which actually I don't like quite as well. But the Jerusalem Bible and the NASB are my personal two favorites for what that's worth. But yeah, alrighty. Thank you, Shirley.
No problem.
Anybody else at this point? Comments, questions, insights about this return process and how you would questions you have about it or things you understand about it, how you work with it, if you work with it. I know a lot of you do. So I have a question, and we'll see if anybody has an answer for me. Um, so when we're talking about return, uh, going back home is a phrase sometimes people use, or a heavenly home, or returning to God. So if we're talking about return, it means we already have been there. So what is this process of what is it we were returning to, and how is it we got away from it in the first place? Anybody have any comments on that?
Hey, Steven, it's
Hey,
Sammy.
Sammy. Hi, bud.
Hey, good to see you.
Glad you made it tonight.
I know the shift in time, it was never an option for me on a Friday, so I'm really happy this is the time now. So
Oh, good, good. You're welcome to turn your camera on too if you like. Of course, you don't have to.
okay, yeah, I didn't know if that was the protocol.
Yeah, that's wonderful if you want to.
Yeah, either way. So it's incredible timing. This exact week has been this exact topic that's been on my mind day and night. It's how do I come back to God? How do I come back to my core? And the point being that there's so much in the world that distracts me from it. There's so much in my mind that distracts me from it, right?
Oh yeah.
And
By the way, just a quick interruption.
yeah,
It looked like you were turning on something, but your camera never came on. If you think it's on, it's not on.
okay. I think I got it fixed here now.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So that's literally been on my mind. I've had several conversations around this exact topic this week. So very strange timing, but the I am open-endedly curious about that for you, how you would teach this, but the idea of coming back to God and being centered, and coming back to God and being centered when I'm making decisions about what to do next or how to act or how to respond. And then, you and I talked and Ani talked, right?
Yeah.
If there's situations that are high stress in my relationship or at work or whatever it might be, those are the hardest times, right? And so lately I've been practicing a specific therapeutic practice, and it wasn't specifically spiritual in nature, but it became that for me. And that's been really helpful. And it essentially brings me, it's like I come back to my own core values and I think of examples that I live out, specific examples of that, like me being loving to somebody, me appreciating beauty in the world or something that someone created, or, things of that nature. And then I sort of feel connected to God in that sense. But outside of that, I don't know. What ideas do you have, or what do you guys recommend?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Is there a more is there any more specific part to that practice that you would like to let other people know too, or just leave them?
Uh, yeah, the actual specific part, that this is a specific therapeutic technique that's like a visualization in order to deal with uh, anger or resentment. And so the practice would be to sit down and visualize a moment that created that anger.
Right.
Literally, just imagine a scene and then notice the signature in your body of how it feels, and then
Mm,
immediately interrupt it with the visualizations of it's a set of categories of things that
mhm.
express my core values. So then I immediately like flip it
Gotcha.
to
Gotcha.
those examples, and I feel the wave. I feel the spike in
Yes.
my body,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it drops very, and it's like literally practice. I try to do it 10 to 12 times a day.
Nice.
Like I literally set a timer, and it's easier today than it was earlier in the week.
That's awesome, Sammy.
Yeah, so it'll
Thank you.
just keep
Thank you
going.
for sharing that, because I think
Yeah,
that's lovely. Thank you.
and that's where it like literally has to be work, because I want to just stay there, and the point of this exercise is to wire it in essentially.
Right,
And
right.
it's like really showing me that I have to actually practice, and beyond the therapeutic aspect, practice seeing the world through, I guess, through God, or as you know, I mean,
Yeah,
through that
for
lens.
sure. For sure. Yeah, I think that's a really good one. Actually, I do a very similar thing to that. I do a couple of things, but that's one of them that I do, is take some time looking at it's for me, it's a backwards reflecting process of looking back at things I actually did do that I felt I responded to very poorly or sometimes terribly. Like I wouldn't even want you to know that I did it. It's like awful. And 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 go back through when I look at it, I go back through and it's like, okay, so what was I feeling right before I spoke this way or behaved this way? And
Mm-hmm.
and then typically I find a feeling, and it's usually a secondary emotion like anger. And and if I just try to deal with the anger, that's a helpful thing. But what I call secondary emotions are ones that arise to mask an initial emotion that's more uncomfortable and more powerless feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
like if I get hurt, I don't want to be hurt, and it's a very powerless feeling. So, but if I get angry, then that's a powerful feeling. So I'm not dealing with the actual fright or pain. It's for me, it's usually fear or hurt.
Yeah.
But instead of dealing with my fear or my hurt, then I'll cover it with something else and then think, well, if I just deal with that, I'm getting better. And sometimes the anger gets better, but in fact, I still haven't dealt with the core problem. And so it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. So that's a helpful thing to me, is to look at that and go, so what would be a better way to address this pain or fear that wouldn't lead to complicating things further? And so that's a help. I do that, a similar practice, which do find helpful. Um, the other thing there are a couple other things I do. I'll just mention two briefly. One is, and I'm getting a little more skillful at these, but I definitely have not mastered any of this stuff yet. So, um, but one of them is that when I look at somebody, like when I'm looking at you, or when you and I are together having one of our, conversations, um, I recognize that you have your own set of challenges and strengths and weaknesses, like we all do. And so that's in my awareness. But what I'm trying to look at when I see you is, who is this child of God in there who's trying to speak to me? And he may be trying to speak to me um, kindly. He may be trying to speak to me because he's upset. But however, who's this child of God that's talking to me right now? And how would I want my child to be treated? And so I try to interact with people, recognizing this divine essence in them, if you will. And if I can sense that, whether I actually sometimes I actually see it, like,
Mm-hmm.
but more often I just sort of have a felt sense of it. And that felt sense of it changes how I want to interact with it. I don't want to try to I don't want to try to dominate it. I don't want to try to fix it. I don't want to try to chastise it. I want to try to encourage it to come into fuller expression. So um, that helps me to try to look at people I'm interacting with that way. And the other thing is actually something my grandmother said was when you're really upset, shut up and take a breath. And just that of not immediately, engaging some adversarial thing, just coming back into myself for a moment and holding a space. Just that's it, just holding a space. Um, Hopefully a loving space, but if I can't do that, at least a space where something else could be present other than the animosity or anger or frustration. And usually if I can hold that space for a couple of seconds, I can make an internal shift where I'm not caught in the reactiveness. I mean, I'm not sure that's conveying well, but that's sort of what happens inside me when I can do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That really does. And I'm even right now, well, part of one reference point you made earlier about how there's an underlying emotion usually connected to powerlessness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in touch with that now. Like it's interesting this week as I've done this exact practice.
Yeah.
I've realized that under the anger is like deep sadness or
Right.
some other kind of powerlessness or whatever, feeling unlovable or something like deeper like that. And then I've noticed physically that if I put my arm on my belly and my like diaphragm,
Mm-hmm.
I could feel my body shift within 5 seconds and like a relaxation. And this is brand new. I mean, in the past, I've done like little hugs and things, but I never realized on my belly was actually like a quick signal. So yeah, and I guess the thing about your idea about godliness, and this is the struggle, is seeing the God in the other person, seeing the child of God in the other person, or even just on a therapeutic level, seeing the hurt child in the other person, right? It's hard when that behavior is triggering my hurt child.
Yes, of course.
My inner child. And so you're right on. It's always been the deeper the inner child or pain that I'm feeling, the more the anger comes out, the more I'm completely lost from God and how to act, So I appreciate it, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Sammy. Thanks for sharing that and being honest about that. It's something I think a lot of us struggle with and many don't feel comfortable talking about. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Nahama.
What I do when I find myself stuck in a place, I recognize I'm feeling constricted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try and develop a greater spaciousness. And one of the ways I do that is through writing poetry, putting words down. And in fact, I did that the other morning. And so I will just, if it's okay, share this real
Please.
quick.
Yeah, please.
Okay. The days pass, each with a deep sadness. It is hard to watch how our society is degrading. And yet, if I gaze back, take time to look at history, the new thing with this time is the technology. It both expedites the harm and lets everyone know. If I broaden my view, pay attention to my interactions with others, notice the kindnesses happening all around me, I realize things can be better than they seem, and they get even better when I remember to act from love.
Sweet.
Short and sweet. Like I said, it was short and sweet.
And right to the point. Thank you, Nahama.
Yeah. So it seemed to fit. So
It does fit. Absolutely. That's another great avenue, whether it's poetry or whether it's even like writing in a journal, stream of consciousness sort of a thing, but just, putting something, taking what's in you and bringing it forward is a very expansive process, frankly, for me.
right. It's that being more expansive for me, that spaciousness.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Don't stay constricted. I still have the constriction, but I also have that more spacious
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
That's mine
Anyway.
as well. That's mine as well. And when there's always a constriction when I'm upset or acting out of ego. There's always a sense of constriction. And when I'm really more in touch with that, God essence, whatever we want to call it, I do feel freer and more expanded, and that's just always. I haven't always recognized that in those terms until more recent years, but that's always been true for me. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that insight. Let's see, Liz, I think as I saw next. Liz, go ahead, dear.
This is Liz, I think.
Hi, Liz, I think. Smart Alec.
Unfortunately, you have met me. So
Yeah, I do.
when people answer Stephen speaking, I say, hi, Stephen speaking, and I continue the conversation. Hey, actually, I have a question for Sammy.
Oh, great. Yeah, go
Um,
please.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if he's willing to repeat this, but I love what you shared, Sammy. And
Yeah.
when you said something about you were looking at your own response, and then you like applied your own, not ethics, your own way of
Like
living,
core
what
values.
core values.
Yeah.
Can you give me one example?
Sure. And you're talking about like the visualization where you imagine the examples
You,
of me living out
if
my
you,
core values, that
if
part?
you if you want to repeat what you had said, earlier quickly,
Sure,
about
yeah.
you found yourself frustrated, angry, and you were trying to shift that, right?
Yeah, like you want me to tell you the process and then what an example of those values are to bring me back?
Pretty please, I'll give you a nickel.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
She
Yeah,
won't.
so
She will not. You hold her to that.
all
Make
right,
her
all
send
right.
you a nickel.
That's okay. You can donate it somewhere. No, but yeah, just so you imagine the thing that makes you angry or resentful and then feel the signature, the physical sensation, and then quickly interrupt it. In my mind, I actually interrupt it with the word HEALS, which was an acronym, or you can interrupt it with the word core value and almost like visually imagine the word core value flashing in front of you. So like,
I'm trying to write as you're talking. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
that's okay.
Your signature what?
The signature feeling, like, so
Feeling.
what does it feel like in your body? Like, what does anger
Gotcha.
or resentment physically
Same.
feel like?
Okay.
Then I
Thank you.
visualize the word core value, and then technically the next step is identify the core hurt. So maybe I feel powerless. Like what's underneath the anger, right? Powerless or unlovable or accused. Those are some deeper sort of senses. And that's when I start flashing to examples of me expressing my core values. And so the examples, the categories, and I could even maybe send an email after, but the
That'd be great.
categories, yeah, I think I'll just do that. I could do a summary and send it to you, Stephen, and then you want to
Yeah,
share it with everyone?
perfect.
Okay.
That'd be great, Sammy. I appreciate it. And then
Yeah,
anyone who wants to just let me know and I send it.
everybody can do it. Yeah, and I just as a quick summary, the categories are: you imagine yourself in your basic humanity. If you saw a child hurt, picking them up and just taking care of them on the spot, right? The next one is what is the most important thing about you in your life? And so you might think about this in advance, like, so how do you want to be remembered? One or two words. And then maybe, well, what would be if you would live out your life having given everything you've got to create a better world? What would that look like? So like the idea of a bigger vision. Think of someone you love. Think of God or a connection to spirituality. Think of moments where you appreciated something in nature. Think of moments when you appreciated something that a person made or created. The next category is think of your connection to a bigger group, whether it's church or family or anything. Just you're a part of something bigger. And then the next one is three examples of you being compassionate to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, you think in advance on all of these categories and you actually fill them out. You have literal examples of you physically doing those things. And it's a practice. And then beyond that, the idea is to daily, you can almost have a notebook. Go in and fill it in, like add something every day, minimum one thing where you actually go live out one of those values. And now you've got an extra thing you could reference during this exercise. And I've found that the compassionate one is really powerful. I found that the finding someone I love is really powerful. Like I feel physically a shift from that sort of anger or despair feeling to like sort of a lightness that comes on. But anyways, yeah, I'll send an email.
That's great,
I
Sammy.
really,
Thank you.
Sammy, I really appreciate that. I kept nodding my head the whole time you were talking, and you couldn't see me
Yeah.
nodding my head. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's
Yeah,
a lot
thanks.
of work. Just to be honest, when people say do the work, I've been committed to it this week, and it feels like I don't even have time for my job. But it's good
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more stuff comes up, and it's like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
kind of overwhelming. But I'm committed. I decided I'm going to do it, so
For
we're
you.
good
Wow.
for it. So
Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing that, Sam.
for sure.
So quick, I see Anna's hand. Before I get to Anna, I think, James, if you had something you were going to share that you didn't get a chance to, because I saw you had your camera on and stuff, and I think I might have missed you. If you don't,
Oh,
that's fine. But if you do, we'll do you first and then Anna.
no, I'll yield my time to Anna. I would just wanted to agree with just about everything Sammy said. That was really neat. And just I can't ever I've known you for 51 years. I can't imagine you, Stephen, ever getting upset.
Call my wife.
Just I know you in a different way, but so
I
yeah.
know, no, honest, that's very sweet, James, and I appreciate it. I have to say, I fail more often than you would think, but I honestly do. I can say I make a genuine effort. I really make an effort, and it is work. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's work every day.
yeah, yeah.
All right, cool.
Thanks, James. That's very kind of you. Anna, go ahead.
Well, this prompted a question in me about appropriate response because any kind of feeling held in that's not expressed
Hmm,
will usually have some sort of manifestation in the body.
hmm,
So sometimes when I first have the first reaction, yes, it's a reaction, but then I contemplate it and think about it, and I realize that if I'm honest with myself, I do need to say something to that person or to that situation.
mhm,
Otherwise, it's the same thing. I'm holding in a non-expression.
mhm.
So I'm thinking that the next step after this, finding a reaction, is to be honest with someone if you really want to be in relationship with that person in some way or another. Now, if someone is, in the store and yelling at you and you get mad, you're not going to track them down and find out, what to do. But the question is how to appropriately express
Yeah,
when something has been done to you, or yes, you react, but something needs to be addressed.
yeah. That's another great question. Another human scenario that we all struggle with. So, two things on that. Um, One is, first, I agree with you. There needs to, if you trap negative energy in the body, it will manifest something in the body that you don't want. So I totally agree with that. Um, but the two things I want to say are that number one, in our current culture, that concept which you just said, which is true, has been twisted to mean that I need to vent and give an angry outburst every time something upsets me. That's false
Mhm,
and not constructive. In fact, we have a phrase now, and the phrase is, let me be honest with you.
mhm,
What that means is I'm going to tell you something terrible. It never means how many times have anybody ever said to you in the last 5 years, I want to tell you, I want to be honest with you about this, and then said something really good and encouraging and uplifting. Almost never. It's a phrase we use to excuse ourselves from behaving and speaking terribly. But we can't criticize it because we're being honest now. Or let's have open and honest communication. And 9 out of 10 people that have ever said that to me, what they meant by that was, I'm going to attack you, but you can't say anything back to me that I don't like because I'm now expressing open and honest communication. And how dare you challenge that? The idea of what honest communication in a loving relationship is, I think, is very confused in our society right now. And that doesn't help with our trying to figure out this human condition that we all struggle with.
mhm,
The, the if, for example, somebody is taking advantage of you at work, or taking credit for something you've done at work, or doing something fair to you at work, just as a very mundane example, you don't need to let that go on. And it does need to be addressed, but you can addressing something directly and firmly is different than expressing something in anger. And the anger again is secondary. Something else happened first. You felt frustrated first because you were treated unfairly, and that hurts. That makes you feel unacknowledged, unappreciated, undervalued, unworthy, all the stupid, all those things that we don't like. And instead of just sticking with that, we put anger on top of that. Now we're upset. So now I need to get rid of the anger. Well, you could have gotten an expression before the anger arose that would have helped to correct the situation, which then would have dissolved the frustration. You could speak very firmly to that person and or to that person's superior if they need to, and say, this is what's happening. And sometimes it's just calling people's attention to it. Do you realize that every time this situation comes up, here's how you treat me and here's what you do? Is that what your intention is? Does that seem fair to you? Does that seem right to you? And sometimes they're just oblivious. Lots of people are very oblivious. And that will bring it into their awareness and the situation will self-correct. Your frustration will dissolve because you've handled the situation. And the anger doesn't even arise for you to do something with so that it doesn't poison your body. The other thing is you can be angry with somebody and build a little uh, padding around it and explain to somebody, I'm really upset right now, and acknowledge that you are, whatever the thing is. And and after you do the expression, you can then also acknowledge that I didn't know what to do with this. So this was the outburst. And and now that I've done this, let's find a way to come back into that loving energy together. But simply expressing negative emotions and stopping there, it does liberate them from our body, but it puts them now out into the relationship, and then that person has a response, and then they react, and then you react to their reaction, and they react to you're reacting to their reaction, and this ball just keeps rolling. So the answer is not simply to use our anger as a weapon against somebody we're angry with, but to find a way to acknowledge the anger in us and to them in a way that's not weaponized. And that's hard to do. That takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice, but there are ways that can be done. And that which is a much longer discussion than we have time for tonight. But there are ways that can be done and that are more constructive, I think. So I think it's very important not to repress things. I totally agree with you on that. And I think many of us do that. A lot of what we struggle with are long time repressed things in us that we haven't given voice to. So there is an unleashing of that needs to happen to free ourselves from it. But at the same time, there are avenues by which we can purge those things and give them and bring them back out and let them unwind and dissolve without doing it by using it, as a bullet to shoot into somebody else and then cause them more problems. That's a really helpful kind of work that we can learn to do. And there are avenues for learning to do it. But I think what some people do is they hear the kind of conversation we were having earlier, and they do what you just said, and they like, oh, it's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be upset. It's not okay to feel something bad. So I need to pretend I don't.
Mhm.
I need to repress it. That's really
Yeah.
not a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I say one
Yes,
quick
Sam.
thing? I know we're almost out of time, but I ran into this exact thought. So you really put into words. This is one of my process this week is, well, okay, I got sometimes I have to say something. Sometimes it's like a legitimate reason to be angry
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
legitimate. And what I've realized is that the practice I'm doing is so basically I've got this one sentence now in my mind is, can I always look at a person, no matter how they're acting, out of line as they might be, and
Right.
see them as see their heart, see their soul, right?
Mhm.
While firmly holding on to what is true and good.
Exactly.
So that's been like the sentence to try and like slow me down, see their heart, see their soul, but still hold firmly to what's true and good. Honestly, I've walked away. I haven't been able to do it every time, but
I,
on a
me,
few occasions, it's
me
been
either.
helpful.
Yeah,
And
but
then one last thought.
that's a great
Yeah,
way you frame
yeah,
great way you frame that for me. That's really I personally find that really helpful what you just said.
good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And one last thought on that is like the only question I ever have in my mind is my reaction, my anger, my emotion outsized? Is it expressed? Is it beyond the situation? And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
it's because of an underlying pain that's deeper or connected to something else. Oh, this person's reminding me of my dad or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so that anger, if it's beyond this situation, is for me to work on my own. If it's somebody called me a name and that makes me angry, all right,
Sure.
well, I'm going to speak up and say, don't call me a name.
Exactly.
I see
Yeah.
you, but here's where I say that's not acceptable to me. I'm
Yeah.
leaving now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where the balancing act is.
I'm with you. Well, I'll get to you in one sec, Liz. Then we have to wrap up. I'm a big dog guy, as a lot of you know, and if you watch dog interactions, it's really interesting because dogs that get along well also communicate displeasure and draw boundaries and sometimes have angry reactions. It's like, that's my toy, don't mess with it. They'll growl, they'll snap, they'll do a quick little charge and stop. They'll communicate to the other dog, this is not okay what you're doing. It's not okay to treat me like this. And the other dog says, oh, sorry. And then they're friends again, like right away. It's like an over and done.
Mhm.
It's expressed, it's clear what the problem was, it's over and done. Then there are other dogs that are not very healthy dogs that overreact big time, and as opposed to communicating and drawing lines, they actually go into attack mode, and then things get worse and worse and worse. And I think that's true with people too. We need to learn how to draw those firm lines, and we also need to recognize, when is this really my problem that I need to work on and not attack you for it? And when is it something you actually are doing that I need to bring to your attention and say, I'm not going to have, it's not okay to treat me like that.
Mhm.
And if you keep treating me like that, we're not going to have a relationship. But this is where my line is right here. I still love you. You're still a wonderful person, and you can't keep treating me like that. So anyway, yeah, Liz, go ahead real quick and then we'll wrap up.
Super quick. I just want to end on a happy note. What
Yeah.
was that? We're supposed to end on something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you, Shuli. I love that one.
This is a technique I learned from my therapist. It's called being happily stupid. And it's not real authentic, but it works. So she talks about when I'm dealing with somebody that I'm frustrated with, but very long story short, we had new neighbors that kept trespassing on a property, and I'd spoken to different people like 5 or 6 times and never stopped. Finally called the police a couple of times. I see this neighbor. I never met the matriarch, the mama, and I knew she was the linchpin. I finally see her walking over to another neighbor's house to complain about me. And I thought, I parked in the driveway and I went, I'm going to walk over. So I walked over and I said, I'm going to call her Sharon. I don't remember her name. I said, Sharon, it is so nice to meet you. I've been, and she's right mid crab to this other neighbor about me. And I'm like, I really wanted to meet you. I've tried and tried to meet you. I'm so thrilled. And I went on. And I walked away happily stupid.
I like it. Thank you for sharing that, Liz.
You're welcome.
All right. My closing little thing is based on what Liz said. One of the problems that I think because of our technology, as Nahama pointed out, we are so at distance from each other. People can say things without any consequences. We can also form opinions of people we don't even know. And we can see or hear, or somebody says something about somebody, we don't even know them, or a group. And we form all these attitudes and opinions about them, but we don't even know them. It's much more difficult to maintain the illusion that somebody is a horrible person when you're not in their face than it is looking in their eyes. It's much more difficult to do that at distance. I mean, much easier to do it at distance. The more we can have face-to-face encounters where we actually see each other as people, a lot of those illusions we built about one another begin to fall away. Even people who don't agree with us. We see somebody who religiously doesn't agree with us, socially is in a different group, culturally does stuff we don't do, or politically does stuff we don't like. And we actually see them as a person. And it's like here they are raising their children and they really love their children and they're faithful to their spouse and they have, they contribute to the community and they don't think the way I think. But look at this. I mean, look at how good, look at this good stuff they're doing. And you see a bigger, kind of like Nahama's expansiveness, you see a bigger picture of them than you do your little narrow window of judgment. And I think actually getting to know people is part of our solution too. And recognize, because when we do, we're going to find some really good things that we didn't even know were there. Anyway, on that note, thank you all. This has been, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thanks so much for everybody who participated, including just those of you who listened. Um, I hope I'll see you again next week and we'll finish up on this and try to move into the kind of Yeshua model of um, how we might use his life and teachings to have some other ideas and techniques we might use to work with this process. So thank you all very much. May you have a blessed week. May you find peace where you didn't expect it, and may you be able to bring peace in places you didn't think you could. Thank you and love you all. Good night.